Hi, everybody. Over the past week, there's been a lot in the news about the conflict between Israel and Iran, and if you're anything like me, you might be confused as to how these two countries ended up being such bitter enemies. So in this video, we're going to try to unravel what's really going on. Okay, so here's the deal. The relationship between Israel and Iran has changed dramatically from the mid-20th century to today. In the decades after World War II, the two countries were surprisingly friendly. But since the 1979 Islamic Revolution in Iran, they have become bitter adversaries. And a lot of today's problems are the result of a series of events over the last 50 years. Let's start by asking how Israel and Iran became allies in the first place. Well, when the State of Israel was established in 1948, Iran's first response was not exactly clear. On one hand, Iran had opposed the United Nations plan for the division of Palestine and voted against Israel's admission to the UN. Yet, in 1950, Iran became the second Muslim-majority country after Turkey to recognize the new nation of Israel. Why? Well, Iran's leader at the time was this guy, Shah Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, and he ruled a very different Iran than the one that exists today. Under his monarchy, Iran was a staunch ally of the West, especially the United States and the United Kingdom, and those two countries encouraged him to make peace with Israel. This is because in the context of the Cold War, America and Britain wanted to contain the spread of communism, and that meant that they needed to keep the Soviet Union out of the Middle East. As far as Washington and London were concerned, the best way to do that was to forge alliances with all of the region's non-Arab countries, which included Iran and Israel. In this way, the two countries were essentially brought together by their powerful allies. But things went beyond just geopolitics and economics. Both Iran and Israel were non-Arab states, surrounded by mostly Arab neighbors, so they saw each other as natural partners against shared regional threats. This idea was part of Israel's alliance of the periphery, strategy in which they sought partnerships with non-Arab countries on the Middle Eastern periphery. During the 1960s and 1970s, Iran and Israel had shared strong official and trade cooperation and engaged in military collaboration. Iran supplied oil to Israel and even jointly operated an oil pipeline with Israel. Trade was strong, with Israeli companies and experts active in Iran. The two countries exchanged informal diplomatic offices, a de facto embassy in Tehran, and later official ambassadors in the 1970s. There were also hidden military projects. For example, Iran and Israel worked together on a missile project in the late 1970s. At the same time, however, not all Iranians were supportive of this closeness. Some Iranian religious leaders criticized the Shah for his friendship with Israel and sympathized with the Palestinian cause. Overall, until the late 1970s, the political and diplomatic relationship between Israel and Iran was mostly positive and cooperative. That all changed in 1979 with the Islamic Revolution. When the Shah was overthrown and Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini established an Islamic Republic, the new regime was fiercely anti-Israel on grounds of belief and religion. Iran cut off all official ties with Israel. They closed the Israeli mission in Tehran and handed the building over to the Palestine Liberation Organization, PLO. Khomeini and the revolutionary government viewed Israel as an unlawful, unfair government over Muslims. He famously declared Israel to be the enemy of Islam and labeled it the Little Satan in contrast to the United States, the Great Satan. From 1979 onward, Iran's policy became one of open hostility toward Israel, based on both politics and religion. Well, that's a pretty intense rivalry. We need a quick break. Alright, now let's get back to our story. Okay, so after the Islamic Revolution, Iran and Israel became official enemies. But that didn't mean that they stopped interacting altogether. In fact, in 1980, Iraq invaded Iran, which sparked a brutal 8-year war between the two countries. Now, this should have been a great opportunity for Iran to get payback against Israel. But remember, at this point, Iran's leaders are very religious, and one of their core beliefs is that Israel is the land of the Jews. Basically, they believe that Jews have a God-given right to their own state. As crazy as it sounds, this belief caused some Iranian leaders to secretly work with Israel during the Iran-Iraq War. They figured that if Iraq was defeated, then Iran's main enemy would be taken care of. Now, at this point, you must be thinking that these two countries hate each other. How could they ever work together? Well, spoiler alert, they did. Throughout the war from 1980 to 1988, Israel became one of Iran's most important secret arms suppliers. Israeli shipments included spare parts, ammunition, and weapons that Iran desperately needed, all arranged through secret channels. Israeli military instructors even helped train Iranian forces during the conflict. In return, Iran provided Israel with intelligence on Iraq. For example, Iran and Israel cooperated on the 1981 Israeli airstrike that destroyed Iraq's nuclear reactor. The public knew nothing about this cooperation, and both governments kept their interactions top secret. After the war, Iran returned to its anti-Israel ways and supported various groups that fought against Israel, most notably Hezbollah, and that brings us to today. Iran continues to support terrorist groups and militias around the region, all while publicly calling for the destruction of the State of Israel. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe as we seek to bring you more of history.